Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Night fell softly over the village of Kawanohoshi, where the river curved like a silver serpent between the mountains. Lanterns flickered beside wooden doorways, and old shrine bells chimed faintly in the wind. Most people were asleep, wrapped in warm blankets and quiet dreams. But Run was not asleep. Run stood alone by the edge of the river, feeling the cold mist on his skin. He was 15 years old, small for his age, with soft dark hair that always fell into his eyes. He wasn't afraid of the night. He had always loved its silence. But tonight, something felt different. The river was glowing. Not gold like sunlight, or silver like moonlight, but a deep, dim blue that shimmered beneath the surface. Ren knelt, staring at the impossible light. "That's not natural," he whispered. A soft hum rose from the water. The glow deepened, swirling slowly as if the river itself were breathing. Then, a shadow appeared beneath the surface. A lantern. Ren jerked back, eyes wide. An ancient lantern drifted upward from the depths, carved from dark wood and wrapped in chains that clinked softly as it rose. Its paper screen glowed with pale blue fire, like the light of forgotten stars. Ren's breath caught. He knew this lantern. Everyone in the village knew it. The lantern of the Underworld. The lantern that guided wandering souls across the river of shadows. The lantern no living person was ever meant to see. But that's only a myth, Ren whispered. Yet it rose anyway, blue fire swirling like silent flame. The mist thickened around him. The river quieted, and Ren felt a presence behind him. Slow, heavy, ancient. He turned.
A woman stood at the riverbank, wearing a long black kimono with silver thread woven like faint constellations. Her hair drifted as though underwater. Her eyes glowed with the same blue light as the lantern. Ren staggered back. "Why, you're from the stories." Her voice was soft, but it echoed strangely, as if spoken from two worlds at once. "I am Miyako, keeper of the lantern, guide of the lost." Ren's throat tightened. "Why can I see you?" Miyako stepped closer. "Because a soul has gone astray, one who does not belong in the realm of shadows, and only one among the living can help me bring them back." Ren's heart pounded. "I'm not anyone important." Her gaze softened. "You are the only one who heard the lantern call." The blue-lit lantern lifted from the river and floated toward Ren. Warm, gentle, alive. Ren reached out instinctively. The moment his fingers brushed the wooden frame, the lantern blazed with brilliant blue light. Ren cried out as visions surged through him. A dark cave lit by scattered embers. A narrow bridge over endless darkness. Pale figure wandering alone. A name whispered on cold wind. "Go." Ren gasped and dropped to his knees. "That name," he whispered. "I know that name." Miyako nodded slowly. "She is the soul that wanders. She does not belong in the underworld. And if she reaches the river of forgetting, she will be lost forever." Ren looked at the lantern. Its blue fire flickered like a heartbeat. "You want me to go with you, don't you?" Miyako extended her hand. "The path between worlds is opening, and the lantern has chosen you." Ren stared at her hand, then at the river, then at the glowing lantern hovering gently beside him. He felt fear coil in his stomach. But beneath the fear was something else. A memory, promise he once made. A voice calling his name, soft as falling rain.
Ren stood slowly. "I'll go." Miyako bowed her head. Then the underworld awaits. The lantern flared, the river parted, and a swirling blue path spiraled into the darkness below. Rin took a breath and stepped into the realm beneath all realms. The lantern-bearer stood at the edge of the stone bridge, her fingers curled tightly around the handle of the underworld lantern. The flame inside did not behave like any earthly fire. It did not flicker with the wind. It did not crackle, did not smoke, did not burn. It breathed. With every breath of the lantern's light, the shadows around her seemed to lean closer, listening. Beneath the bridge, the river of the dead flowed in slow, glassy waves. Its waters glowed faintly with a pale, bluish-white light, the reflections of countless souls drifting beneath its surface like distant, wandering stars. She swallowed. Even after everything she had heard in whispered stories and half-forgotten prayers, nothing could have prepared her for this. For the silence. Not the gentle silence of snowfall, not the comforting quiet of a sleeping village. This silence was heavy, old, the kind of silence that remembered every name ever spoken to it, and every name forgotten. The lantern in her hand pulsed gently, as if reminding her, "You are not alone." A faint splash echoed somewhere along the riverbank. She looked up. Across the water, shadow shapes drifted along the shore, pale outlines barely anchored to the ground, as though the slightest wind might tear them away and scatter them into the darkness. Some held the vague shape of people. Others were little more than wavering outlines. Lost souls. They did not see her. Not yet. Their gazes were fixed on the river, on the currents that had carried them away from the world above. Some reached toward the water with transparent hands, as if hoping to catch something they had dropped. Others simply stood and stared, their eyes hollow with a longing too deep for words.
"The river of the dead," she whispered under her breath. "The river that forgot the sky." Before the lantern found her, she always imagined this river as a roar of water, wild and hungry. But it was not like that at all. It was quiet, too quiet. The lantern's flame swayed. A warmth seeped through her fingers where they gripped the handle. A gentle, steady reassurance. She drew in a breath, trying to calm the trembling in her chest. "Right?" she whispered. One step at a time. She stepped onto the bridge. The stone beneath her feet was cold and smooth, worn down by footsteps that no longer belonged to the living. Each stone seemed to hum with echoes of those who had crossed before her. Some had crossed to reach judgment. Some had crossed to be forgotten. Some had crossed to find peace. She did not know yet which she would witness, or what the lantern had truly brought her here to do. Halfway across the bridge, the air changed. It grew thicker, almost like water. Her breath came slower, heavier, as if every inhale traveled a much longer distance than it should. The lantern's flame brightened, and suddenly, she could hear them, not with her ears, with something deeper. A soft murmur drifted around her, like wind tangled in reeds. "Where am I? I was just there. I was just home. Where did everyone go? Why can't I wake up?" Her chest tightened. The voices came from the river, from the banks, from the very stones beneath her feet. She hadn't expected their fear. She'd grown up hearing tales of the underworld as an inevitable destination. Cold, yes, and mysterious, but orderly, distant, settled. The dead went there, and that was that. But now she understood something else. The journey itself hurt, because it was full of unfinished thoughts.
At the center of the bridge, she stopped. The river below was clearer here, its surface less clouded. She knelt carefully and leaned over the edge, lantern held forward. Beneath the still water, she saw them more distinctly now, countless shapes drifting with the current. Some floated upright, some curled inward, some reaching out with hands that passed through each other without touching. Eyes stared up from beneath the surface, not accusing, not even pleading, just lost. A breath caught in her throat. "Can they see me?" she asked softly. For a moment there was no answer. Then the lantern warmed in her hand, and the flame bent downward, like a tiny star bowing toward the water. A faint ripple spread across the surface. One of the figures below jerked slightly, turning its face upward. Its eyes widened. She saw herself reflected there, distorted, distant, but real. "They can see the lantern," she murmured. "Not me." The flame pulsed again, as if in yes. She tightened her grip. If they can see the lantern, maybe they can follow it. Was that why she was here? Not to judge, not to condemn, but to guide. The old stories had always been so vague. She stood and looked forward. The far end of the bridge disappeared into a soft, silvery mist. Beyond it lay the next part of the underworld. Beyond it, the unknown. The lantern grew heavier in her hand. No longer just an object, no longer just a mystery. A responsibility. She reached the other side of the bridge. The mist parted around her, revealing a valley beneath a sky that had never seen the sun. Instead of stars, faint lights hung suspended in the darkness. Small, pale flames drifting above the ground like fragile lanterns. Lights of the unremembered. A voice murmured beside her. She jumped.
A figure appeared, a tall silhouette cloaked in deep shadow. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Once I was called a ferryman," the shadow replied. "Now I am simply a witness." The ferryman's gaze fell to her lantern. "It chose you," he said. "That is why you still breathe. You know what it is? I know enough to fear it, enough to respect it." He stepped closer. "Most lights here are bound by memory, regret, the weight of the unsaid. But your lantern, it breaks the rules." "How?" "The dead who lose their names become these." He gestured at the faint suspended flames. "Souls forgotten by the living. Stories erased by time." She swallowed. "And the lantern? Sometimes, when its light appears in the world above, forgotten embers flicker again." Her chest tightened. "What does it want me to do?" "For that," the ferryman said, placing a hand on the lantern, "you must listen." Darkness rose around her. The lantern floated before her. Its flame revealed gold, pale blue, silver white memories. Voices filled the dark. A mother whispering a name. A lover promising to return. A child laughing. A farewell in a forest. Promise over waves. When those who live forget, the lantern whispered, "I remember." Tears stung her eyes. "And the forgotten souls? Their stories are here, waiting. What do you want from me? To carry me where I cannot go. To stand at the edge of memory and forgetting. To shine where the path breaks. Why me? Because you listened. You remembered names others let fade." A tremor moved through the dark. "And one soul waits for you in particular." "Who?" The lantern dimmed. "Wake," the ferryman's voice echoed.
She opened her eyes. The underworld returned. The valley of dim flames no longer looked empty. It looked full. "Can I call them back?" she asked. "Some," the ferryman said. "Not all. But the lantern believes you can reach a few threads." And the soul waiting for me? That you must discover on your own. The lantern tilted in her hand, pointing deeper into the valley. One faint flame flickered brighter than the rest. She felt it, a pull, a familiarity. Her grip tightened. "All right," she whispered. "To the ones the world forgot." She stepped forward. The valley of lost lights stretched endlessly before her. A quiet ocean of pale, floating embers suspended above dark soil that remembered far too much. The lantern-bearer held her breath. The air here felt different, heavier, full of longing. Each tiny flame flickered with a faint pulse, as if breathing in slow, uncertain rhythm. Some were barely more than ashes glowing weakly. Others drifted gently, trembling with the weight of stories on the brink of vanishing. But one burned brighter, only slightly but enough to call, enough to pull at her heart like a thread tied to memory. She followed it, the light that knew her name. As she walked deeper into the valley, the lost lights drifted aside, parting like mist around her. None touched her, none dared. The lantern's glow parted them like dawn pushing back the remnants of night. The ferryman walked beside her, silent as a shadow. His presence did not disturb the flames. He moved as though he had walked this valley longer than time itself. She finally stopped before the brighter ember. It hovered lower than the others, as though too tired to remain aloft, yet still it glowed with a fragile determination. A name fluttered on the edge of her mind. She didn't know it, and yet her chest tightened, as if she should. The ferryman broke the silence.
"Some souls cling to a single memory," he murmured. "A name spoken once with love, promise, a voice they feared to lose." She knelt slowly, lantern held close. The ember brightened. A whisper, faint as breath on glass. "You!" Her hand trembled. "It's speaking," she whispered. "But I don't understand." "It doesn't know how," the ferryman replied. "Not anymore." She lowered the lantern. The flame inside leaned toward the ember, as though greeting it. The tiny soul flickered in response, fluttering like a spark struggling to remain lit. Then a memory washed over her. Not her own, but carried through the lantern's warmth. A snowy field, a falling lantern, hands reaching, a voice crying her name. No, not her name, someone else's. She stumbled back slightly, breath caught. "This soul, it knows me." The ferryman did not deny it. "Some threads cross long before the underworld," he said. "Even the lantern cannot choose at random. It remembers who you remember, even unconsciously." "But I don't know who this is," she whispered. The ferryman tilted his hooded head. "Not yet." The memory in the flame. The lantern brightened suddenly. Its flame stretched upward like a ribbon of light, reaching toward the ember. For a moment they touched, and the world vanished. She found herself standing in a different place, a memory space woven from light and shadow. A child ran through a moonlit orchard, laughing breathlessly. Snow fell in soft, whispering flakes. Another child stood waiting beneath a lantern hung from a low branch. They couldn't have been older than 10. The laughing child ran forward, but slipped. The lantern hanging above rocked violently. Its flame dimmed, then went out. Darkness swallowed the orchard, and the second child whispered a name filled with fear, a name filled with love, a name the lantern-bearer had not heard in years. Her breath caught. She recognized the voice.
She recognized the tiny trembling ember waiting in the valley. "No," she whispered. The orchard faded. Darkness returned. She stood once more beside the ferryman, knees weak. The brighter ember floated before her. Her voice broke. I know this soul. The ferryman said nothing. The lantern's flame glowed softly, patient, understanding. The ember pulsed again. This time the whisper was clearer. Lanira. Her name. The lantern-bearer Lanira. Felt tears blur her vision. He remembered me, she whispered. All this time, even after crossing the river. That is why his light still burns, the ferryman said gently. Memory holds him, but only barely. Lanira touched the air around the ember, afraid to touch it fully, afraid it might break. Who was he? She whispered, voice trembling. The ferryman answered quietly. Someone who died carrying your name in his last breath. Her knees weakened. The valley of lost lights shimmered around her in reverent silence. Lanira bowed her head. What does he need from me? The lantern pulsed, warm, steady, unwavering. He needs to remember his story, the ferryman said, and you must be the one to speak it. The ember brightened, fluttering like a heartbeat awakening after a long, cold sleep. Lanira steadied her breath. She held the lantern close. Then I'll help him, she whispered. I'll remember for him until he remembers himself. The soul pulsed stronger. The valley responded with a soft hum, as though thousands of lost lights had paused their quiet drifting. Watching this moment, Lanira stood tall. The lantern glowed bright enough to cast shadows on the valley floor. And for the first time since she arrived in the Underworld, she felt the path ahead open.
Lanira stood very still. The soul that remembered her, the small, trembling ember, floated before her like a fragile heartbeat. Around them, the valley of lost lights swayed in a quiet, stirring ripple, as if thousands of forgotten souls had paused their drifting to witness what might come next. Lanira raised the lantern. Its flame grew steady and warm, a soft radiance that wrapped around the ember without touching it. The ferryman watched silently. What must I do? Lanira whispered. The ferryman's voice was low, distant, almost reverent. Walk the road of echoes. If a story still clings to this soul, if a name remains, it will reveal itself there. Lanira looked down at the tiny ember, glowing faintly like the last star in a night that had forgotten dawn. I'll take you, she murmured, as far as I can. The ember pulsed, as if saying, I know. The road that remembered footsteps. The valley shifted around them, not with sound, with memory. The dark soil cracked like brittle glass, and a thin path of shimmering dust appeared, twisting into the distance like a trail drawn from moonlight and shadows. Lanira stepped onto the path. The lantern swayed and breathed in her hand. The ember followed. The ferryman remained behind, speaking one last time before fading into the drifting lights. Beware, lantern-bearer. The road of echoes repeats not only what was remembered, but also what was forgotten. His shadow dissolved like smoke on the wind. Lanira walked forward. As soon as her foot touched the shimmering dust, the world rippled. A soft sound fluttered through the air. Laughter. Childlike. Bright. Familiar. Lanira froze. The ember brightened and drifted ahead. A scene unfolded on either side of the road like reflections in fractured glass. Two children racing through snow-laden fields. One with dark hair, running with wild energy. The other chasing behind, laughing breathlessly. Lanira recognized them instantly. One was her. The other.
The ember flared gently. He was the soul she carried. Lanira's chest tightened painfully. We were so young, she whispered. The echo shifted. The children paused under a tree where a single lantern hung from a crooked branch. Snow fell thick around them, muffling the world into quiet serenity. The boy, the very same soul now floating before her, cupped his hands around the lantern flame. You always liked lights, his voice echoed. So I wanted to bring you one that never goes out. Lanira felt her breath tremble. She remembered this. She remembered his hands shaking because he was afraid he'd drop the lantern. She remembered laughing and calling him clumsy. She remembered that night, until the echo cracked suddenly like a broken mirror. The lantern in the memory went out. Everything went dark. Lanira grabbed her own lantern instinctively. Its flame flared bright, but the echo faded. The second echo, a name almost lost. The road twisted left, bending into deeper shadow. A new voice drifted through the air. Soft, afraid. Lanira's steps faltered. That's my name, she whispered. Why is he calling me? The flame in the lantern bent toward the ember, urging her forward. The next echo rose from the road like mist. The same children, but older now, nearly grown, standing at a frozen lake. Hands brushing, shy smiles exchanged. Something unspoken trembling between them. Lanira felt tears sting her eyes. Lanira felt tears sting her eyes. The boy stepped closer to echo Lanira. He whispered, I'll come back before winter ends. I promise. Lanira's heart twisted, because she remembered now. He didn't come back. He never got the chance. The echo fractured, the image dissolving into frost and shattered stars. The ember dimmed. Lanira knelt beside it, voice breaking. You remembered me until the end, didn't you? A pulse. Warm. Gentle. Yes. The road of echoes narrowed into darkness. For a moment, even the lantern's flame seemed hesitant, flickering weakly. Lanira pressed it to her chest. I'm here, she whispered. Don't fade. The flame brightened. The last echo revealed itself. A snowy road. A boy holding a small lantern in shaking hands. A storm rising behind him like a wall of white. He turned once, toward the memory of Lanira, toward the home he was leaving. He whispered into the wind, Tell her, I kept my promise. The storm swallowed him whole. Lanira felt her heart break open. The ember beside her pulsed violently, brightening, dimming, brightening, dimming, the fragile light struggling against its own unraveling. Lanira reached for it. Listen to me, she whispered, voice shaking. Your name isn't gone. Your story isn't lost. I remember you. The road trembled. The world brightened. The ember flared. At the end of the road of echoes stood an ancient archway, woven from darkness and starlight, carved with letters that rearranged themselves as she approached. The gate of returning names. A place where a forgotten soul could reclaim its name, if someone living remembered it with love. Lanira stepped forward. Her lantern blazed like a newborn star. The tiny ember drifted into her hands. Lanira held it gently, whispering, I know your name now. The world fell silent. Lanira breathed deeply, and spoke the name she had once whispered under winter skies, the name she had buried in grief. Iron. The ember burst into radiant light. The gate opened. A voice, clear, warm, and undeniably his, whispered, "Lanira." Her knees weakened. The lantern pulsed. Once, twice, as if proud. The soul drifted through the gate. Lanira bowed her head. "Go in peace," she whispered. But as she turned back toward the valley, something moved. Hundreds of faint lights flickered wildly, awakening, calling, needing. The ferryman's distant voice rose like a warning. "Lanira, you have changed the balance." Lanira lifted the lantern. This flame burned brighter than ever. "Then I will guide them," she whispered. "All of them." The underworld trembled with awaiting stories. Lanira had always believed the underworld was a quiet place. Silent, still, unmoving. But after the gate of returning names closed behind Iron, the valley vibrated like a drum struck by unseen hands. Faint lights trembled in the air. Shadows rippled along the valley floor. The soil beneath her boots shifted as though something ancient had awakened beneath it. Lanira tightened her grip on the lantern. This time the flame did not simply glow. It stretched, like a living thread of light reaching toward the darkness around her. Something was calling it. Something vast. Something hungry. The ferryman's voice rose from the mist behind her, edged with urgency. "Do not linger, lantern-bearer. You have shaken the underworld's oldest silence." Lanira turned. The ferryman emerged from a bank of drifting shadows, moving faster than she had ever seen. Even the lights around him dimmed in reverence or fear as he approached. "What's happening?" she whispered. He lifted his hooded head. "You returned a name." "Yes," Lanira said softly. "Shouldn't that be a good thing?" The ferryman hesitated. When one forgotten soul remembers itself, hundreds more try to follow. As if his words were a cue, the valley erupted in soft, trembling flickers. The air thickened with whispering voices. "Lanira, please, can you hear me? Remember me." Lanira's breath caught. They sounded desperate, afraid. "Why are they calling me?" she whispered. The ferryman's voice darkened. "Because they believe you can bring them back. All of them, even those who are too far gone." Lanira swallowed. "Can I?" The ferryman said nothing, and that silence told her everything. The world beneath the valley. The ground trembled again. This time something cracked open. A narrow fissure snaked across the valley floor, glowing with deep blue light. Light unlike anything Lanira had seen in the underworld so far. It pulsed rhythmically, like the slow heartbeat of a sleeping beast. Lanira stepped back. "What is that?" The ferryman curled his gloved fingers inward. "That is the passage to the deep forgotten," he said quietly. "The place where souls fall when their last memory fades." Lanira's chest tightened. "You said you never go there." "I do not." His voice was almost a whisper. "No one does." The fissure widened with a soft groan. Shadows rose from it like smoke, each one taking the shape of a faint, flickering silhouette, souls long since dissolved into the underworld's depths. They drifted upward, their forms unraveling and reforming like tattered cloth caught in a storm. One whispered, "Lanira." Lanira flinched. She had never heard such a voice. Thin, cracked, empty, like wind passing through broken reeds. The ferryman stepped in front of her, cloak sweeping wide. "Stay behind me." Lanira lifted the lantern. The shadows froze. The flame inside the lantern glowed brightly enough to swallow their outlines in a soft, warm shimmer. They recoiled, not in pain but in longing. "Do not let them touch you," the ferryman warned. "They will cling to you, drag you down. They do not mean harm. They simply want to be remembered." Lanira's throat tightened. "It isn't fair," she whispered. These were people. They had names, stories, lives. The ferryman's voice softened. "That is why the lantern chose you, because you feel their loss." Lanira tried to steady her breathing. "What do they want from me?" The fissure widened again, and from its depths came a low, resonant hum. The lantern flickered. The ferryman's posture stiffened. "Oh no!" Lanira's fingers tightened around the lantern handle. "What is it?" "The keeper," he said. "It stirs." Lanira blinked. "The keeper of what?" The ferryman turned toward the widening crack, voice trembling for the first time. "Of forgotten names." A deep rumble answered. "The keeper of the deep forgotten." A shape rose from the fissure. Impossible. Enormous. Shifting like a shadow given form. It did not walk. It floated. A colossal figure made of unraveling letters, drifting memories, and fragments of names spoken long ago, but no longer recognized by any living tongue. No face, no voice, only a hollow presence filled with silent, unending grief. The keeper hovered above the valley, and the faint lights dimmed as if bowing their heads. Lanira swallowed hard. "What does it want?" The ferryman lowered his head. "It guards the lost. But when you opened the gate, you awakened its hunger." Lanira's eyes widened. "What hunger?" "To be remembered." The giant shape leaned toward her, ancient fragments falling from its body like dead leaves. Lanira instinctively held the lantern forward. The flame surged. The keeper trembled. The ferryman hissed, "Lanira, don't anger it." "I'm not," she snapped. She stepped forward. The ground shook violently beneath her, but she didn't stop. The lantern's flame softened, turning from bright gold to gentle blue. Lanira spoke softly. "I can't remember all of you. No one can." The keeper's massive form shuddered. "But I can remember." Her voice trembled. "That you existed." A windless silence swept the valley. Lanira continued, "And that you mattered." The lantern pulsed. The keeper's body of unraveling memories loosened, softened, as if her words soothed a wound older than death. Lanira lifted the lantern higher. "If you let me pass," she murmured, "I will carry as many names as I can. A piece of you will live in me." The keeper stilled. Then, slowly, Gracefully, the colossal shadow bowed its head. The fissure's glow dimmed. The valley brightened. Lanira lowered the lantern. The ferryman let out a shaky breath. "I have never seen the keeper bow," he murmured. Lanira looked at the lantern. Its flame burned with quiet pride. A new path appeared ahead, carved by light. "Where does it lead?" she asked. "To the shrine of returning stories." Lanira straightened. "Then that's where I'm going." She walked forward, lantern lighting the way. Lanira stood at the edge of the valley, the lantern burning brighter than it had since the moment it chose her. The underworld trembled with awakening lights, tiny souls flickering like stars shaken from an ancient sky. She felt them pulling at her, calling out with longing, grief, and fragile hope. Iron had passed through the gate of returning names. His story was whole again, but countless others still flickered in the dark, waiting for their thread of memory to be found, waiting for someone, anyone, to speak their name aloud once more. Lanira held the lantern close. "I won't abandon them." The valley shimmered as if in answer. From between the shadows, the ferryman emerged, silent as ever. His hooded face tilted toward her, unreadable. "You have changed the balance," he said. "The lantern was never meant to open the gate so freely." "I didn't free the gate," Lanira replied, steady but soft. "I freed a story." The ferryman's shadow flickered. "And now the stories call for you. All of them." Lanira turned slowly. Lanira continued, "And that you mattered." The lantern pulsed. The keeper's body of unraveling memories loosened, softened, as if her words soothed a wound older than death. Lanira lifted the lantern higher. "If you let me pass," she murmured, "I will carry as many names as I can. A piece of you will live in me." The keeper stilled. Then, slowly, gracefully, the colossal shadow bowed its head. The fissure's glow dimmed. The valley brightened. Lanira lowered the lantern. The ferryman let out a shaky breath. "I have never seen the keeper bow," he murmured. Lanira looked at the lantern. Its flame burned with quiet pride. A new path appeared ahead, carved by light. "Where does it lead?" she asked. "To the shrine of returning stories." Lanira straightened. "Then that's where I'm going." She walked forward, lantern lighting the way. Lanira stood at the edge of the valley, the lantern burning brighter than it had since the moment it chose her. The underworld trembled with awakening lights, tiny souls flickering like stars shaken from an ancient sky. She felt them pulling at her, calling out with longing, grief, and fragile hope. Iron had passed through the gate of returning names. His story was whole again, but countless others still flickered in the dark, waiting for their thread of memory to be found, waiting for someone, anyone, to speak their name aloud once more. Lanira held the lantern close. "I won't abandon them." The valley shimmered as if in answer. From between the shadows, the ferryman emerged, silent as ever. His hooded face tilted toward her, unreadable. "You have changed the balance," he said. The lantern was never meant to open the gate so freely. I didn't free the gate, Lanira replied, steady but soft. I freed a story. The ferryman's shadow flickered. And now the stories call for you. All of them. Lanira turned slowly. In the distance, beyond the drifting lights, a great structure was forming. A towering wall of dusk stone with countless faint markings etched into its surface. It rose higher and higher, revealing dozens of archways, each humming with forgotten memory. The Hall of Lost Doors, the ferryman whispered. No mortal has ever stepped inside. Lanira closed her fingers around the lantern's handle. Then I will be the first. The hall that breathed stories. The moment Lanira approached the hall, a wind that was not wind swept across her skin. The archways pulsed in response, glowing faintly with silver blue light. Each door shimmered with its own hue, its own heartbeat. These doors, Lanira whispered, they're connected to souls. Yes, said the ferryman. Each door leads to a name forgotten by the world, a story sealed away, a memory that has no voice. Lanira lifted the lantern. Its flame brightened, stretching outward in a long, thin glow like a guiding finger. The flame leaned toward one door, a cracked, dim archway. Lanira approached it, breath trembling. What soul lies beyond this one? She asked. The ferryman hesitated. A dangerous one, a drowned memory, a spirit who resisted the river, who clung to life so fiercely that it tore pieces of the underworld in its struggle. Even I could not guide them. Lanira touched the cracked stone. The door shuddered. The lantern warmed in her hand. It's asking for me. No, the ferryman murmured. It is asking for light. Then it will have mine. The drowned memory. The cracked door split open. Cold mist rushed out. Colder than winter, colder than loss. Lanira stepped inside. Lantern held forward. The ferryman did not follow. The world within was dark water. Not a room. Not a corridor. A sea. A sea with no sky, no shore, no wind. Only endless depths of memory swirling beneath a quiet, suffocating surface. Lanira stood on a thin strip of stone barely wide enough for her feet. Hello? She called softly. Her voice bounced strangely, as though the water swallowed and echoed it at the same time. A shape formed beneath the surface. A pale hand broke through the water, grasping desperately. Lanira gasped and rushed forward. A face rose, hollow eyes, trembling lips, soaked hair plastered to an indistinct form. A young woman. Her voice cracked. Don't let me drown. Not again. Lanira knelt, holding the lantern close. You're safe, she whispered. I'm here. The drowned soul reached toward the light. Her fingers passed through it, unable to grasp. I lost everything, the soul breathed. My name slipped first, then my memories, then my voice. Lanira leaned closer. What do you remember? Anything at all? The soul's empty eyes glimmered. A song. Lanira blinked. A song. The drowned soul nodded weakly. A lullaby. Someone used to sing to me. Lanira lowered the lantern toward the water. Sing it with me. The soul stared up, trembling. I don't remember the words. Lanira smiled softly. Then hum it. A trembling breath. A faint sound. A melody, fragile, wavering, but real. Lanira felt the lantern's flame pulse in recognition. She had heard this song before. Long ago, a cradle song passed from mother to daughter, carried through generations, whispered under winter moons and warm summer nights. Lanira closed her eyes and began humming. The drowned soul's eyes widened. You know it. Yes, Lanira whispered. Someone in my village used to sing it. I never knew her name. The soul trembled violently. I think that was me. Lanira's breath caught. She opened the lantern wider. A ribbon of light spilled onto the water. The soul gasped as warmth surrounded her, pulling her gently upward. What is happening? You're remembering, Lanira whispered. You're finding your way back. The drowned woman's face crumpled as tears, real tears, shimmered in her fading eyes. My name. I can almost. Lanira touched her hand. Say it. The lantern flared. Light poured across the hall, and the drowned soul whispered her name. Mira. The water calmed. The memory sea softened into mist. Myra's form solidified into a bright ember, warm, steady, whole. She whispered, Thank you for giving me back my voice. Lanira smiled through tears. You never lost it. The final door. When Lanira stepped out of the hall, Myra's ember floated beside her. The ferryman watched from the valley's edge, his shadow trembling with something like awe. You brought her back, he said quietly. A soul even I could not guide. Lanira held the lantern high. I didn't do it alone. The hall of lost doors rumbled. More doors glowed. More names stirred. More stories awakened. Lanira stepped forward, lantern blazing with fierce, steady light. This underworld has forgotten too much, she whispered, and I am done watching it fade. The ferryman bowed his head. Lanira, you have become something this realm has never known. Lanira looked at the lantern. Its flame shone with the warmth of 1,000 remembered voices. What am I? She asked softly. The ferryman answered, A guardian of memory. The underworld trembled. Far away, a great shadow shifted, the ancient ruler of these depths awakening to the stir of light. Lanira did not fear it. She walked forward. One soul saved, countless more waiting, and with every step she took into the valley of forgotten names, the lantern's flame grew brighter, guiding lost souls home. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth.